This is Ken Lathrop from Coffee Crafters, and welcome to another episode of The Friday Show. Today we're here to talk about blending coffee beans, and we get a ton of questions on how to blend, what do I blend first, and one of the things that we probably should talk about first is why we blend, which kind of surprises a lot of new roasters. The number one reason people blend coffee beans is for an economic reason. It's actually cheaper. They will mix a lower quality bean, not necessarily lower quality taste-wise, but a cheaper bean, like a Brazilian, with a higher quality bean, and that becomes a blend. So, just to throw out a couple of numbers that really happen in the coffee world, you can get a Brazilian bean for a couple bucks a pound sometimes during the year, and you might blend it in with something that is $4 a pound. So right away, if you do a 50-50 blend, you've reduced your raw material cost by 25%. And if you're into coffee roasting for a business, that's a big deal. The number two reason is a supply reason. If you've watched some of our earlier episodes, you might remember the episode on comparing Arabica coffee with Robusta. In 1954, when they had the big Brazilian freeze and it decimated the Arabica coffee, they were scrambling to figure out some other coffee to mix in so that they would be able to supply. And they mixed in the Robusta, and which led, Maxwell House Coffee actually led the charge on that. And over the course of the next few decades, they took that up to about 70% that they were mixing in, and they found out that supply issue actually turned into a big economic issue for them because it was so much cheaper to make that blend. And that's one of the earlier stories on blending. Now, it may not have turned out exactly like they wanted because they didn't anticipate that the double caffeine content in those Robusta beans they were putting in would make American coffee drinkers go down from 3 cups a day to 2 cups a day. So somebody probably had an interesting conversation in the boardroom over that. The last reason, which a lot of our roasters consider must have been the first reason, which were quality. And every roaster wants to differentiate themselves from the other roasters, so they'll try to come up with some proprietary blend. And everybody wants an edge when it comes to coffee roasting, and so they'll want to blend those coffee beans and come up with something. And one of the things about blending is it really is part of the fun of coffee roasting, just blending it, cupping it, trying it out. So another thing that confuses people is just how they get started on blending and what some of those basic issues are. Now, there's a lot of resources on site, online, and we're going to give you a link to a really nice article for people getting started blending. But the number one question that we get about blending is, do you blend the beans before or after roasting? And there are reasons for both. One of the reasons why you'd want to blend the beans after roasting is that coffee beans can be vastly different sizes. So if you're blending in a Robusta bean, maybe that 15% you're putting in your espresso blend or a much smaller bean, you wouldn't want to roast them, with a larger Brazilian bean, as an example. And the other thing is bean density. You'll get a lot of different densities in coffee beans as you're roasting them. So that's some of the reasons why you would want to blend after. Now, for most coffees, they are roasted together. So there'll be a close enough size profile and density profile that you can roast them together. It really helps to mix them up. And one of the things, just as a general roasting thing to throw in here, because it comes up when blending, not all coffee beans out of the bag, even single origin, roast all to the same color profile. We've had customers call and say, hey, there's one bean, the roaster's not working on this one bean. And it's really a matter of density and size, and especially when you get into some of the organics that are graded differently, where you get a lot of smaller beans with larger ones, they won't roast the same. So something that you might want to do for an experiment when you first start roasting is come up with your own espresso blend. One of the base coffees that is very common for espresso blend is a Brazilian coffee. So Brazilian is probably used as a base more than any other bean. Now, why is that? Brazil makes up 1/3 of the coffee production on the planet. So it's more common to find that Brazilian bean, which is actually a lower cost, so it's also an economic issue, right, than anything else. So a very common blend for this first blend you might try would be 70% Brazilian, 15% Central American, and it doesn't matter which Central American is, it's Guatemala, Costa Rica, whatever's your favorite, blend that in, and then maybe even 15% Robusta, and you can leave that in or put it in. You know, remember that when we were talking about espresso, they will put 10-15% Robusta beans in there to boost the crema on the coffee. So that is definitely something that you can try. Now I found a link some years ago on Sweet Maria's about blending coffee that I thought was excellent because it talks about some of why you blend coffee and then gives you some real examples on percentages that you can try. And here's a link to that article right here that will go directly there, and you can read about that. If you're a coffee roaster and you have some blends that you'd like to share with our members of our Facebook page or our customers, please send them in and we will post those for you. And we'll even roast some up and try them if you'd like to do that. So this is Ken Latham of Coffee Crafters. We've been talking about blending coffee. We hope you found that informative. Thanks for watching.